Hi guys, Coballz here for Team Dignitas with part 1 of a new series titled What Might We Make of the Mid-Year Mage Update. In case you didn't know, somewhere this year, judging by the title, somewhere in the middle of the year, traditional mages will get an overhaul. The mages mentioned as the big six for this review are Brand, Cassiopeia, Balzahar, Vel'Koz, Vladimir, and Zyra. To read up on it, I've left a link down below. To get into things quickly, I want to zoom in on a post made a few days ago by Meddler, saying that there will be some item changes, almost certainly won't be as large as the Marksman ones though. Now this raises a few questions, since the Marksman update got 4 of the items removed, 11 new items, and changed to about a dozen high-end items. Depending on what you call nearly as large, the following changes I propose fit that category. In this first part, I'm going to discuss the removal of ability power items, as some are so strong or bad that they should, in my opinion, be removed from the game in a current iteration. This means that in order for mages to become as great as they once were, we need to make some sacrifices in terms of itemization. So let's get to it. Now, to some, the removal of certain items will be controversial and frowned upon, but in my opinion, these are the items that are the biggest problems for mages in terms of how diverse their itemization can be. Now, the first item of full removal is the Abyssal Scepter. It is a middle-of-the-pack item that provides 70 ability power, 50 magic resist, and an aura that reduces the magic resist of enemies nearby by 20 in 700 radius. And currently it's being picked up by a whole heap of champions. Looking at the base stats, that's 70 AP, which is between the Athenes and Holy Grail and the Morel and Lumicon. And 50 magic resist, which is higher than the magic resist on any other ability power item, making it the pinnacle of anti-mage itemization. You'd think, at least. The 20 magic resist reduction aura is what gets people going. Marksmen have anywhere between 30 and 42 magic resist when mages finish this item about 9 levels into the game, and they typically don't get any magic resist until that third item, meaning that this item effectively has the ability to take 2/3 of that magic resistance away. Now, you have to get relatively close range for that to happen, but 700 range is still even outside Caitlyn's basic attack range, which is still pretty far, hence the reason mages pick it up. At 2350 gold, it is also one of the cheapest items when not looking at Frost Queen's claim, and it provides an insane increase in damage. But its stats and abilities are harshly conflicting as is, for the following reasons. The magic resist reduction aura incentivizes you to get up close and personal to make the best of your damage output. Champions like Diana and Fizz are perfectly suited for this item because it's in their nature to get into melee range to get their damage off, thus putting the magic resist aura to good use. But as an all-in oriented item, getting into melee range to get a large percent damage increase, it also comes with a safe haven in 50 magic resist, the highest amount of magic resist found on an ability power item, which is absurd. The base stats tell you, hey, this guy is fed, let's build something against them. Whereas the magic resist reduction aura incentivizes you to get up close and personal with them so as to put the aura to good use. The aura itself is a good idea, but the combination of stats and this aura is a bad idea, which makes the current iteration of the Abyssal Scepter super conflicting, and as such, to me, the first item that has to go. Second is Zhonya's Hourglass, which in part suffers from the same problems as the Abyssal Scepter does. It provides 100 ability power and 50 armor, which is the single highest amount of armor on an ability power item. Additionally, it provides the Stasis active, which it is so well known for. However, this is also the biggest problem Zhonya's Hourglass has. The Stasis active, while exceptionally effective against assassins, doesn't prevent hard CC from being effective. It thoroughly counters champions like Zed, since you have a 3/4 second window in which you can activate it to 100% nullify his ultimate, and against him, the armor is effective to a certain extent. On the other hand, it also hard counters champions like Fizz and Karthus by being invulnerable during their ultimates, but when the item is not up, the resistances don't help a single bit against them. The stats do not align with what the item is supposed to do. Against mages, the stats do nothing, and against physical damage assassins, the stasis neglects the armor as you're briefly not in the game, thus not making use of the armor. Seeing as how that's conflicting, and with the stasis being the single most overpowered active on an item, and this coming from a mid-main, Zhonya's Hourglass has to bite the dust. Lastly, and I'm aware that this is perhaps the strangest of items on this list, is Rabadon's Deathcap. The Deathcap is the single highest ability power item mages can get. It provides 162 ability power on its own, and any other item you get becomes 35% more potent in its ability power stat. A Frost Queen's claim gets more AP than an Athene's, Athene's outdoes a Morello, Morello outdoes a Ludens. It stacks really fast, and getting it first means you'll be stronger than ever, getting it later means you'll have a massive power spike the squishies just cannot react to properly. It's an item that gives raw power without any means for the opponent to play around it, which makes no sense. Even the Infinity Ash has better counterplay in that its damage is gated by the critical strikes it does, or does not deliver. Cue black screen, Rabadon's Deathcap is gone. However, if these items are to be removed, there needs to be items to fill the voids created by their absence. The removal of Zhonya's and Abyssal creates a void in terms of ability power armor and ability power magic resist items, and removing Deathcap means the high and ability power item is gone. Now, we could just compensate for the loss of the Deathcap by introducing a new 120 ability power item, but mages would still lose 35% of their ability power. The cheapest AD item, the Longsword, provides 10 AD for 350 gold, hence its gold value of 35 gold per stat point. My idea is to make the current Amplifying Tome, which gives 20 ability power, cost the same amount of gold, making its gold value 17.5 gold per stat point. I did this because AD is dually offensive, whereas ability power isn't. To illustrate this statement, I've prepared an example. We'll compare Diana and Talon, two assassins that weave some basic abilities into their assassination rotation. A quick look at Champion.gg's builds gives Talon a hypothetical build of Yomu's, Maw, Dustblade, Cleaver, and Ravenous Hydra. This gives him a grand total of 325 bonus AD, paired with his base attack damage at level 18 of 108, giving him 433 AD. Diana's Champion.gg build provides her with a Lichbane, an Abyssal, Zhonya's Void Staff, and Deathcap. Diana's build gives her a grand total of 608 ability power, which is slightly under twice as high as Talon's bonus AD, in addition to her 104 base AD. Talon's potential assassination skill rotation has a 400% bonus AD ratio, totaling an additional 1300 damage from his items. Diana's spell rotation, however, has a total ability power ratio of 330%, which comes down to 2006 damage, far higher than Talon's. However, Diana's basic attacks will only deal 104 damage, of which she uses 3, a difference of over 300 per auto attack when compared to Talon's, who deals 433 in his 3 auto attacks. It's plain to see that while Diana's abilities benefit far more from her getting ability power than Talon does with his abilities from getting AD, Talon benefits twice as much from his bonus AD because he can use his auto attacks. It is this duality in effectiveness that makes the ability power stat higher than AD, and my reason to make AP have half the gold value per stat point, and thus lowering Amplifying Tome's gold cost. Extrapolating this event to the other ability power items, we maintain the Blasting one's gold cost of 850, but up the ability power value to 50, giving it a gold efficiency of 102.9%. To make things fair, I propose we lower the gold cost of the pickaxe on the same token to 850 gold, so as to make that item have a better gold efficiency as well, which was the incentive with higher tier basic items, making your money worth more. Lastly, we increase the gold cost of the needlessly large rod to 1350 gold and bump it up to 80 ability power, reverting its last nerf and giving it a gold efficiency of 103.7%. In addition to that, I've chosen to tackle a few issues with the current low tier ability power itemization. Currently, AD champions invest 900 gold in a sustain stat that works on every auto attack. Meanwhile, mages are required to invest 1200 gold in an item that gives diminished returns when used on large amount of minions. AD items invest 1100 gold in items that give either cooldown reduction or flat penetration, whereas mages invest 800 and 1600 gold in items of those stats respectively. To align ability power with attack damage, because we're trying to compare apples to apples as much as possible, a few other changes I propose are as follows. Changing the Hextech Revolver so it costs 200 gold less, but also gives 2% less spell vamp and requires 1 less Amplifying Tome. Sounds like a pretty bad trade, but an additional change is to have spell vamp be 50% effective on multi-target abilities, up from 33%. This is to allow mages to itemize into sustain if they so desire, without being gimped because Riot doesn't like mages sustaining. Changing the Fiendish Codex to build from 2 Amp Tomes costs 1200 gold up from 800 and give 50 ability power up from 25, to solidify a Codex purchase as an offensive purchase that requires a bit more dedication, as well as to put it on par with the AD counterpart in Caulfield's Warhammer. Changing the Haunting Guise to a 1200 gold purchase, building from 2 M-Tomes like the Codex before it, and having it give 50 ability power and 10 magic pen. It loses the 200 HP to once again solidify it as an offensive purchase, and it loses 5 magic penetration from its current iteration so that it may build into more things, similar to the Serrated Dirk. It may allow mages to get more flat magic pen to itemize into. Seeker's Armguard is last on my list, because it requires a bit more rigorous rework than the other 3 items did. The recipe is fine, albeit the stats change a bit. 40 armor up from 30, and 30 ability power up from 20. It loses the stacking passive, however, and it solidifies itself as an item that mages can get against physical damage assassins. On activation, you gain immunity from physical damage for 1 second, plus an additional second for each 100 bonus armor you have. This not only makes for a great AP version of the Hex Drinker, which triggers on its own, thus not rendering you able to decide what damage to block. But it also allows you to decide what physical damages you want to block. People with fast fingers can block a Jin crit or decide to negate a Zed Deathmark pop, but not a spell rotation as a trade-off. This change would make Seeker's Armguard a great middle ground item for mages. So that's the 4 low tier items I've chosen to rework, in varying degrees of severity. During the Marksman update, with the removal of the Brutalizer, there was a rework of 5 lower tier AD related items that aren't component items, namely Zeal, Phage, Hex Drinker, Tiamat, and Last Whisper. Currently, my rework entails the rework of 4 items. Next up, I will go a bit more vigorous and introduce some items to the league that serve to fill the gaps that we've been living with for quite some time. So long.
Honestly, I don't really have rivals. I just want to play the best I can. Like, before I used to care too much about other...
Are you going to pull off the right? Get the play! Get the close!